I was going to say I am slightly concerned. So I'm getting lots and lots of glitches.
Oh,
that's your age, love. It's not technology.
Oh, behave yourself.
hello everyone. Welcome to a Talking About Who special, and this week we are looking at Doctor Who and the Galaxy 4, which is now animated. That's all very exciting. I am Paul P-Bal. Look, I can't get my line right. I'm Paul P-Bal, and I am joined by.
Hello, it's James.
And hello, it's Jason.
And hello, it's Ben again.
Hey!
Hey! It's a special, so we get Ben in tribute to the Australian star of Galaxy 4.
Indeed.
Oh, we've not watched it.
Where's your shiny tin that you're normally waving around in front of the camera at this point?
Oh, would you like to see the merchandise?
Yes.
Because I can show you a Doctor Who and the Galaxy 4. Look, there's my seal.
I love that. I love that way you do that.
I could show you my Galaxy 4 standard Blu-ray, or my Galaxy 4 DVD.
Oh God!
Or my Galaxy 4 paperback. my Galaxy 4 hardback.
Oh no! Now I'm jealous.
My Galaxy 4 Lost Episodes collection. My Galaxy 4 soundtrack CD, or my Galaxy 4 vinyl. Because I think really we need this story in more formats. I'm slightly feeling it's undervalued.
I was waiting for the Galaxy 4 lunchbox.
Dex is busy making them somewhere.
all I'm saying is I think the cost of all this is probably more than it costs to make Galaxy 4 and animate it. So it's not a story we've actually talked about before, so it's in our future past. Is anyone a big fan of the Galaxy 4 before they had it dropped through their letterbox this week, or from the local supplier because we went into a real shop? I mean, I know it's a slow story, but not one of you's going to take that as an introduction.
I don't think it was on my sort of top stories to be animated. It's nice to have it. It's not up there with previous animations, as in, I really wanted to watch it, unlike sort of the recent Dalek one that we reviewed. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's nice that it's there. Never seen it before. Didn't have it in all the different formats like yourself. However, it's not one that I sort of like think, wow, I'm so glad we got it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest again, for me, it's not one I would immediately have thought, oh, great, they're animating Galaxy 4. What an amazing story. In fact, I think if I'm honest, Galaxy 4 as a story is probably about as bland as the background I've got behind me this week. I think there are lots of other better candidates out there for the animation treatment. And do you realize, actually, it's 8 years now since we last had a Hartnell animation. So he's been, I think, largely forgotten, and I think that's not a good service, to be fair. As I said, there are plenty of other good stories out there. Galaxy 4 is a surprising one, but as I think when we walk through this and we talk about it, hopefully, I for one, I think it's not, it's a great effort in this one again. But we'll talk about this more as we go.
For anyone wondering, Jason's had all his possessions repossessed, and we've got to get this recorded before his computer's taken away. So, we'll do a GoFundMe thing. It's fine. We'll get you some wall coverings.
They've pinched Rusty. I don't feel it just doesn't feel right without Rusty being there.
50 quid on Etsy that went for. 50 quid, the bargain.
Bargain, that was bargain.
Ben, were you a big Galaxy 4? Not the shop in Sheffield. I mean the TV story.
No, I think Galaxy 4 is best described as cheap and cheerful. It's almost 10 years since we had Airlock Part 3 returned, because it was December 2011 that we had it screened at the BFI along with Underwater Menace 2. And I think when because up until then it had been a bit of a mystery as to what these two episodes were, until people actually sat down and they said, right, this is what we've got. And then we greeted with the sight of a rill at the very beginning of the episode, and people thought, oh, you know, because I think for a time the rills were quite mysterious, and I don't think there were any photographs of them until more recently. They'd found some, so I think it's a lot of the story had been quite mysterious, really. So I think people sort of excited to see that, but then as the episode went along, they thought, oh my god, this looks like it was made for sixpence. So it's I think, and they didn't end up actually showing the whole episode. I think they only showed about half of it, and then stopped it because the end of the episode is actually missing, because I think it sort of cuts out just before the end of the episode, so they had to reconstruct it, and I don't think they'd done it at that point, so that's why I believe they only showed part of it. But yeah, it's as you say, it's a bit unloved. It's not the top of the polls, that people vote for it saying, oh, I love this story, I'm so glad it's back, so I think that, coupled with Underwater Menace, after that people just thought, oh god, I think when they were hoping for 10th Planet 4 and Power 1 and they got those two, then but
I love that Doctor Who and graciousness thing. It's like, we've got 2 missing episodes. It's like, oh my god, 2 minutes. Oh my god, what's it going to be? It's like, it's Underwater Menace 2 and Galaxy 4 3. It's like, oh, great.
Yes.
Literally what I've always wanted to see. Anything else in the bag? Anything else there? No. It is a slight shame. I mean, actually, I was thinking about it when I went to the post office there. Between our front door and the house, there's like the 2 doors, and I felt like Stephen Taylor when the door shut behind me. I had to unlock the front door. That's a cliffhanger in this story. It's odd, isn't it? Because I don't think if someone said tomorrow, right, we've got 2 more missing episodes, I don't think anybody's going to be like, I hope it's episode 4 of Galaxy 4. I hope we get some more of this, because it's not awful, and you don't sit there watching thinking this is terrible. I hate this. I'm not having a good time. But you don't sit there watching it thinking, I'd love to see more of this, and I need more of this, because I think basically the 4 episodes are so sort of flatlined, aren't they? There's not a lot to carry it forward.
It's weird because Airlock was like one of the most watched episodes up until the 3 Doctors. It was, apart from sort of like a finale, it was the highest rated story until the 3 Doctors. So, and that's the one episode we got back, and I'm still struggling to understand why it was so highly rated. It was in the top 15 of the TV listings for the week's viewers.
Wow.
So I don't know what's going on.
I suppose it's competition, isn't it? Maybe what else was on. But I mean, having said that, the publicity shots and the Drahvins and the ladies, that's quite a striking image. And I don't know whether people thought this is going to be good. That's a good shot. Whether they obviously were disappointed and didn't come back the week after, I wouldn't like to say, but.
Yeah,
but there are nice elements to it, aren't there? The Drahvins are a good thing, as we can see, we've inspired.
And you're right. I like the Drahvins. I think it's an unusual switch around, isn't it? Because the Drahvins, these beautiful women, we've talked about on previous reviews that you don't often get women in the cast at all, and suddenly you've got a whole group of them, and actually, spoiler alert, the twist is they're not the good guys. They're actually the sort of main protagonist, and the Rill, who is monstrous and is painted to be this sort of evil creature, actually is trying to save them. So I love that twist. I mean, don't get me wrong, like you say, it's quite flat. There isn't a great deal of wow moments, but I do like that element to it. I think it's a nice twist on what we would normally see, especially back then. where the women would just be in the background characters, or a single strong female, not a whole group of them.
Yeah, I mean, Stephanie Bidmead as Marga is she's certainly delivering a great performance there. There's no question around it. Even in the animation, you because you can hear obviously what she's how she's characterizing it, and I think the animation does her benefit actually as well, because I think it's helping to deliver the character. But yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, we see her in the episode that we've got Airlock, and we see her obviously in the 400 Dawns clip. And she's good, I think she really believes in the part that she's playing. She's playing a very dominant female, and it's coming across really strongly.
And she's a local girl for me. She was born in Kidderminster, so she is a local, I wouldn't say she's a local celebrity. I don't think there's a statue of her in Kidderminster, but she's a local girl. So, a shout out for that one.
Loving the stats on that.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, she's great. And she also manages to get away with that kind of, extreme close-up exposition stuff, which is very difficult to sort of get away with. But I think Galaxy 4 is quite an obvious one in some ways to animate, because there's not a lot of base material. So, the sets infamously are dirt cheap in the original. There's not a lot of, there's not a depth or anything. So you've only got to make a barren planet. The Drahvins are meant to be clones, so they can all look the same, and there's no faces to do on the Rills really, or the Chumblies. So you've only got your regulars, and then you can pre-program them when you need to do the myth makers and stuff. So it is an obvious choice, but I don't know whether it necessarily expands in any great way, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's dynamic enough to say, it's taken quite a limited base material, but given it an extra depth, which some of them do. I think Macra has a good go at trying to give a bit more depth to the visuals.
I think the planet sequences are quite strong. I mean, I used to watch when animations came out in the earlier days. I was quite rigid and only watched the black and white sort of 4:3 crops of the animations. And now I'll be honest, my go-to is always to watch the color first time out on one of these. And I've got to say that, having seen the Studio Planet set and having seen the realization that they can open that world up a little bit more in the animation, I do think that the planet setting looks very impressive. I love the colors, and it's certainly wide open. It's certainly put a wider aspect into what we couldn't have seen in the studio. I mean, you're quite right. It's just a planet, and it's not necessarily setting the world on fire. But I think it is adding some depth in there. And the bits at the end when the planet's sort of exploding, and obviously visualization of that in the original series, I'm sure wouldn't have been that terribly good. So I think they can, the animations can bring that extra dimension. They play around with the spaceship designs. So for example, the inside of the Drahvin ship is different, as is the inside and the outside of the real ship actually. So you can get this artistic license, or this artistic ambition, if you like, that you couldn't have got in the studio. And I think they do go some way in this animation to realizing that.
Yeah, I went to see it at the BFI a couple of weeks ago, and it was good. It was well received by the audience. It's actually you don't realize it, but it's actually quite funny in a lot of places, because Hartnell has a lot of quite funny lines that he sort of drops throughout the thing. Even his fluffs and stuff are actually quite funny. But afterwards, on the panel, they had the animators and Gary Russell on there. And Gary Russell said that rather than sort of take it literally with the design of the planet, how it would have been seen on screen, what they did is, as you say, Jason, they wanted to sort of open it up a bit and make it sort of wide and vast. So he said they based a lot of it sort of on the Australian desert. So very sort of vast and wide and arid, and quite sort of like a red sort of a color. So and it actually works quite well like that, because it actually reminded me of the those old annuals that they would have out, and they'd be quite colorful. you know, in the sort of the reds and the greens, the blues and things like that they'd use. So so I think that's what they've done. They've tried to make it quite almost sort of like a pop art, so quite a colourful sort of thing, rather than, because especially as you've had not long before, you've had Fury, which was really quite grey and drab and so forth, whereas this is actually quite a colourful sort of story. So I think that the reasoning behind that sort of makes sense, really, rather than, or let's just recreate the tiny little sets and the grey drabness of it. But let's give it a bit more life.
I think that was what I was sort of going with, is that Galaxy 4 was quite a porridgey based material, so I'm surprised they didn't put a little bit more into making it look a bit more exciting and a bit more oomph. It's not the desert planning isn't a million miles off what was on screen anyway, and the just odd bits that I thought, there's that little bit, isn't there, where Margaret claps her hands to wake up the Drahvin. And that's completely dropped out. I'm not saying you should recreate everything, but that's actually quite a funny thing, and it's a funny visual that you know exists within the episode. So it seems odd that just that glimmer of sort of humour in there is something that's dropped. But the big thing, and I don't know if this is controversial for anyone else, and I can pull out my prop here. Look, I always thought the Drahvins like I mean, they're a sort of grey colour here, but I always thought the Drahvins were red. Why did I think the Drahvins were red?
Didn't Peter Purves get the colour wrong as well? Because he thought they were green and they were blue.
Well, at the BFI after he did a talk after the animators, and they said, "Oh, and thank you to Peter for remembering what the correct colour was." So I don't know if that's a sort of a memory cheats thing, that maybe a long time ago he thought it was this, and then someone said, "No, it was clearly that colour."
I'm sure I've seen people cosplay in Drahvin gear, and it's been a red and white. We'll have to ask. I mean, does anyone ask Lynn Ashley? We should ask Lynn Ashley. What were you wearing, love? What was the colour? We'll see what she says, because it has to be said. Sometimes recollections may vary. And I'd like to hope that if it was your actual costume for 4 weeks, you'd have a strong handle on what colour you were wearing. I don't know.
Like one of those...
Certainly the stuff of dispute on Twitter, I think. There's been there has been quite some debate on Twitter and some of the social medias around this particular issue of the colour of what the costumes of the Drahvins were.
It's like that blue and gold dress thing, isn't it? It's just like, what colour was it? I don't know. I thought it was pink. But yeah, I always thought it was blue. But there we go.
What colour's your Drahvin costume?
So mine is, well, I mean black and white, but mine is white and blue.
Oh. So we now know that Commander Arga, Arga, do you think that's a good one for you?
Yes, I'll go with Arga.
Yeah, more Arga than Marga. He's wearing white and blue. Well, obviously one of the key things to these releases is the special features. Have we digested all of the delights upon discs? But it has still got its price tag on it. It is open, I'm telling you, it is open. I've opened it and everything.
It's like QVC, isn't it?
It's free shipping for Black Friday, and it's limited. No. So what do we think of the? I suppose the hero documentary is the sort of making of, where they take a trip to Peter Purves' house.
That was lovely.
Which isn't where they made Galaxy 4, but it's where they're going to talk about making Galaxy 4.
I thought I quite liked there was 2 documentaries. There was that one, and then there was the Finding the Episode one. But I really like. I mean, obviously Toby's very good. I liked the fact that the Chumbley sort of turned up on his doorstep and he sent it away, because he's not made any secret about the fact that this is not one of his favourite episodes. He felt that the characters were written for Ian and Barbara, and he got some of Barbara's lines, and he wasn't very happy with what he had to do. But I thought, as he was sat there talking to Toby about it, I thought he warmed to it more. And Peter's always happy to sort of talk about his time on Doctor Who anyway. So he was, very sort of Very open about it. I really enjoyed it. It was very relaxed conversation. So I enjoyed that.
That's one of Toby's talents, though, isn't it? I mean, he he'll sit down, and I think he always gets the best out of all the people that he chats to, because it's not an interview. He's chatting along quite merrily to Peter and bringing out the photographs and just prompting those sort of memories and those discussions. I just think he's got a great way about him, and I think it gets the best out of Peter as we go through. And actually, there's some great archive footage in this as well, particularly of William M's. And it's great to sort of hear some of the recounting of those stories back in the day, if you like.
Yeah, because I think it does make good use of the archive material, because I suppose, sadly, as time marches, there are less people to talk to about these things. So it's good that, we still got Maureen, we still got Peter, and Lynn's on there. Marina didn't want to be on there, so it's kind of like there's enough voices on there, and you are also always sort of painfully aware that you're asking someone to remember something from 56 years ago or something. Say, so what happened on the second studio day? It's like, I don't know. I remember last week in Waitrose. It's like, it's quite a task for people. So you have to sort of approach these things, and they come in a fresh way, because there was a bit of a blight on some Doctor Who DVDs. I will mention no names, obviously. There are some which are badly lit and they're bad sound, or they've got horrible sort of frilly cut out, and it just looks nasty. But these are always so beautifully shot, and they are, they're good. They're a good production, and I think we should be proud that sort of effort goes into, covering these things.
I did have to laugh, actually. Peter goes up into the study, and he pulls off the shelf this VHS, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be something. It's a bootleg of Galaxy 4, and it's just so beautifully done. And it's he says, one of the only Doctor Who pieces of merchandise he's got, and it's actually a bootleg. So it just made me laugh at the time.
You get the feeling that's not going to be something that you could sell on to Bonhams, isn't it? I've got my Doctor Who thing here. I've kept a bootleg VHS of a reconstruction of Galaxy 4. What sort of figure are we looking at on that? £2, maybe £5 if you sign it.
I was going to say, at that point, that's where he reveals he's still got all 4 films of Galaxy 4. He just doesn't want anyone to see it.
Propping the door open downstairs.
That
it's funny because
nice. That would have been nice. That would have been good fun to have done that, I think.
But I know when we did our Phantom commentaries for this, Donald, Tosh, and the rest of them were really excited. They really loved it. They were like, oh, the Chumbley one. If you told them that when we said we were doing Galaxy 4, they were like, I don't know. It's like with the Chumblies. The Chumblies. So the Chumblies. And I know Maureen on the commentary and the documentary, she loves the Chumblies. It seems to be like a kind of a thing. Do we have a lot of Chumbley love in the house?
I'm not sure what it is about them, actually, that I kind of enjoy, but they're a bit quirky and a bit funny. They're a bit shapeless, really, as well. But I don't know, they've got little bits of comedy about them with the antenna and stuff like that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the Chumbley.
They're like a rope. Oh, go on, sorry, Ben, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think after a while, especially at the PFI screening, some people were saying that, especially in part 4, which keeps going on and on and on. They were like, shut up, and it just gets a little bit much. But yeah, they are sort of funny, quirky little things. And it's also interesting to hear Maureen on the documentary and the commentary, and some of the other people as well, talking about the people inside them.
Yeah.
And the fact that some of them, I think, was that Angelo Muscat?
Muscat,
People,
who were constantly like, they're fighting all the time. They were like having arguments and this sort of thing. So you can imagine what it was like, and they're then sort of moving around like this in the Chumblies and then going like that afterwards. So yeah, quite funny.
They are quite sweet. They're like little robot aardvarks, and they sort of, when they're attacked, they go back. They sort of sink into their shell, and then they sort of pop back out again. which is quite sweet. I mean, it's not exactly the most threatening creature, you know, when they're like, oh, here come the Chumblies. It's like, I want to run up and go, oh, look at that.
Yeah, you want to run up and
run away from it.
You know?
Yeah, I want to hug it. I want to make sure it's okay. I mean, it's quite doddery going along the soil. You're just like, oh, do you want a hand? You know, just. Well, when you watch episode 3, and you realise that you know, you watch the animation and you watch episode 3, and you realise they're just as sort of feeble as they're portrayed in the animation. They're just like one swift kick and it would be down the road.
I think marketing people have absolutely missed a trick with not making a remote control Chumbley and releasing that. I mean, it would be hours fun. Imagine Christmas this year could have been kids going around hitting the cat and, you know, and going around annoying their parents with a
just going.
It is very R2D2 though, isn't it? There is a sort of a similar kind of vibe, isn't there?
So did George Lucas watch it all those years ago and thought,
yeah, there's a, do you not know, in the beginning of Star Wars, you know, when all the droids are lined up, there's a Chumbley in that.
Is it next to Thunderbird 2?
I am making that one up.
More facts from the dark web.
Oh no, the Chumblies were due to probably be the Quarks in reality.
oh,
But I seem to recall on my Doctor Who at the Radiophonic, the 30 years at the Radiophonic Workshop, I think all the Chumbley sound effects were on that as well. So, you know, there's still a chance to make it into a disco hit. I suppose we saw the commentaries that there's plentiful on there, and they've obviously had to source some of them from, you know, internet connection, so sound quality may vary and all that stuff. But it's comprehensively covered, I think, because we sort of felt, as I recall with Evil of the Daleks, that it was a little bit breath. I think there's all the Galaxy 4 coverage you could want, apart from the Phantom one, which also contains Donald Tosh. But as a rule, I think you know, you're well catered for, because there's the actors from the actual production, and there's you know, production team, and there's animators, and there's all you could ever want to know about Galaxy 4 in there.
it's funny you saying about because obviously this had to be done obviously during COVID time. They couldn't all have them in a studio, but yeah, you're right. Some of them, you know, the sound quality is not so good. And on one of them, you can actually hear Peter Purves' dog barking in the background, which is quite funny.
Are you assuming it's Peter Purves? I mean, imagine if it was one of the other ladies and he got really well-behaved dogs that didn't bark.
True, yes. Maybe I am just assuming, because in the documentary you see Peter's many dogs, and I thought, oh, they're probably sitting there going, we want our dinner.
or responding to the ooh.
Oh, yes. It's only a frequency dogs can hear, and it drives them mental.
So, I think, actually, I should check. Has Stato got anything he wants to tell us about Doctor Who and the Chumblies?
No, there's not a great deal of stats around this one. I would call out, it was the guy who founded the sort of former ITV sort of engineer was Terry Burnett. So I'm glad he didn't, because then we wouldn't have it. And he's on the other documentary where they talk about the two clips, the 6-minute clip that they rescued, which was part of a documentary back in 1977 around who is who. Is it? No, what was it called?
Who's Doctor Who?
Who's Doctor Who? That's it. Yeah, where they had a 6-minute clip, but they only used about 30 seconds of it in the documentary, but he still had the other, you know, the whole 6 minutes. And then obviously this episode that was recovered. So, you know, and we talked about missing episodes before, and this is 10 years ago now. So we're sort of extending that period since the last one was found.
But there is quite a nice little backstory to it, though, like you said, you know, and there is that as a little extra on this release for us to sort of hear that story. And I don't think there's any story of a find of missing episodes that you don't actually marvel at in some way, or don't get some sort of real warm feeling inside, you know, another piece of our lost history coming back. But this is quite an interesting story, isn't it? And obviously with the film being damaged as well when it came back, obviously it's been now repaired, and you know the bits have been added in that were missing. So I remember I saw Galaxy 4 at Chapter Arts. It was at the time when the BFI was sending film prints around the country as part of a sort of a national tour of the archive finds that Missing Believe Wiped, I think it was, and it went on tour. And I remember being quite shocked at how badly damaged it must have been. And obviously then you saw the repair that they did to it. But it's a nice story behind this one. You know, he's got it sat on the shelf there, and it's kind of like, and he gets it returned and nobody knows it's coming. And, you know, I think these days we hype it up. I mean, obviously we're recording this today, viewer, on what is the birthday of our dear Doctor Who. And, you know, everybody's been building up to, oh, there's going to be a missing episodes, you know, announcement. They're going to have found Marco Polo. They're going to have done this, done that. We still lust after, you know, the return of missing Doctor Who. And there's still an appetite for it out there. And you're right, it's been 10 years now since we last had, you know, realistically, you know, obviously we had the stuff that come back with Phil, but it's, you know, this is 10 years ago. Phil's find, now nothing. Come on, we're overdue. We're overdue a return of some sort here, aren't we?
But also in context for today, we had the announcement of one of the world's worst kept Doctor Who secrets, that the Abominable Snowman is being animated. I mean, didn't know out there, folks. I don't know what channels or things you're following. So
that we didn't know that was coming at all, did we?
it was a shock. It was a shock. It was. So before we get to the summation, is that Abominable aside, which Doctor Who missing tale would you most like to see animated next?
That's a good question.
It's a good question. I mean, I'd like one of you to answer it. It helped the video immeasurably.
Dalek Master Plan, isn't it?
You almost feel it's too big an ambitious a project, really, to undertake the 12. I mean, it would be lovely to see it animated, but you almost feel like it's almost a little bit too big. I mean, I definitely
not sure I'd go to the BFI screening of it in one day. I think that would be a bit much.
I mean, I think I certainly want a Hartnell. Because I think, you know, we've had quite a number of Troughton releases from an animation perspective. So for me, I think it would be a Hartnell story. Everyone will default and say Marco Polo. I mean, I can imagine that you could make that look quite glorious if it had the budget and the time and the effort put into it. You know, with the sort of visualization of the desert scenes there as well, and obviously the whole sort of trek to Cathay there. I don't know. I think I'd want one of the quirkier ones, something like a Myth Makers or something like Celestial Toy Maker or something like that, I think.
Ben, what's on your list?
Cliff has just taken me answers. I was going to say Celestial Toy Maker and Myth Makers. Never mind. Oh, well. All right, I'll say the Massacre. There you go. To be different. But
it's another one of them lost ones, isn't it? It's another one of those ones that we don't have a huge amount of visual for. So it is nice, I think, to take those stories and maybe just, you know, I'm not against a reimagining of the story. So, you know, the Fury from the Deep with the, you know, the sets that are much larger than they would ever have been, you know, the planet scenes here on Galaxy 4, you know, I'm not against reimagining the stories. So therefore, you know, take something like the Massacre and see if you could produce, you know, a piece of very strong animation around it.
It will be interesting, actually, how they might tackle something like Space Pirates as well. Because obviously we've got one episode, we've got no telesnaps, and we've got no reference for, is it Don Missigri, I think, at the end? There's no pictures of him at all. So that would just be a case of it's just going to have to make it up. So it'll be interesting to see how they would tackle something like that.
I think that, yeah, those would be my two choices. I think Space Pirates, you could probably have a lot of fun where you could do a lot with the spaceships themselves. It might help people to appreciate it more than maybe they do now, because I think unlike others where you can do a sort of telesnap reconstruction and you can do quite a solid telesnap reconstruction, Space Wars with the lack of visual material, it's quite a strain, I think, to sort of get through that sort of, if you don't just listen to the audios. And Massacre, I like the Massacre, I enjoy the Massacre, but I think if you had a visual representation that was, you know, a bit more fluid, it might help with some of the who's who, what's happening, and it might just be a little bit more easier to follow, maybe. Or they might just have really big arms and all get killed at the end. I don't know. Okay, so Doctor Who and the Chumblies, aka Doctor Who the Galaxy 4. Is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe on its new release?
Oh, go on, I'll go. It's a maybe. It's not a classic. It's nice to have. Few good bits in it, but not jumping out at me. So, yeah.
I'm gonna say a hit for me, because even though the story isn't, you know, the best, but I think they made it look good in animation, and it's a really nice extras package as well. So I'm going to say a thumbs up.
Yeah, echoing a bit of what I'm going to say there, Ben. Actually, the story is not as memorable as people would want us to have, but the animation is well realized for me, and I think that it can add just a little bit of something to a story when you've got some nice visuals to go with it. You know, I said about telesnaps too many times now, you're all bored with it, but so it's not the best of stories. I think it's a great treatment. It is it's a brilliant making of documentary that comes with it, and I really enjoyed that. It's nice to have got some of that archive stuff. Yeah, I like these releases. I think it's great, and I'm a big supporter of the animation. So for the story, it would probably be a little bit that, but if you want to add the animation and the extras on it, it's going to be a hit for me.
Yeah, I don't think the animation's spectacular. I think it's all right. It does the job, and the story is a bit meh, but you know, it's another 60s story. It's a fun. It's fun. It's a fun watch was what I was trying to say there. But I got a whiff of Jason's drink on the wind. It travelled that far.
I've got water today. Don't be mean.
Yeah, if I put a match to that water, that bottle will go up.
Okay, I'll wave that round instead.
I think it's great. I applaud the effort that goes into doing the extras and making sure that even in the most difficult circumstances, the limited sort of resources, that you know, the fans are getting something that's worth buying. And it's not just the vanilla knockouts, and there's restoration. There's restoration on the episode itself that still exists, and I know they go back and Derek redoes all the telesnap reconstructions, and so there's so much time and love and dedication. So I think it's going to be a yes. So it's a hit for me.
Hey, that's good. I think that's good. That's a good result.
Positive time. So thank you very much, guys, for joining me and looking at Doctor Who and the Galaxy. Oh no,
the Galaxy 4 million versions.
Oh no, I didn't bring. I'll tell you what, I didn't get out my unabridged reading. I've got Maureen reading the book as well on CD. Next time.
This is your very own Sharda, this, isn't it?
It's not even a story I particularly like. Look at the amount of iterations. They know how to sell these things back to us, and we never notice. We just don't know, do we? Until we're on the 14th version.
I've actually always loved the Galaxy 4. Actually, just as an aside, just before we end, I've always loved the Galaxy 4 Target cover. It's always, again, it's that striking orange, possibly. It's always been one of them covers I've really enjoyed.
And just to say something quickly, the book, unless I'm mistaken, when I remember reading it years ago, you could check this, P-Bal, why you got the book there. that at the end, when the planet's blowing up and stuff, I'm sure they say that Marga, like her hair catches fire and she starts burn, her skin's melting. And I was thinking, I wonder if they're going to animate that. But I thought, oh, maybe.
I'm looking. Okay. Marga stared in disbelief as the TARDIS dematerialized. Deafened by the uproar, her clothes beginning to smolder and her eyes stinging with acid tears, she turned upon the remaining Chumbley and blazed away at it. No, I think you've there's a bubbling sound of the planet, but I think you've added some of the horror to that.
I'm going to say Thunderbird still comes swinging in now any minute.
Probably, yeah. But interestingly, actually, whilst I've got it in my hand, it's only 4 chapters and they are the 4 episodes. There's been no attempt to break it down into digestible chunks.
If that had been written by Ian Marter, then Marga's face would have exploded and her hair burnt and she would have been screaming in agony because he loved the description.
Maybe there's more of a graphic description of Drahvin 4 covered in blood. There might be, maybe there's gore in them there hills. That's no. So thank you guys for joining in with that.
A pleasure as always.
Yep. Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we shall see you again very soon.